Dear students, welcome all of you to this Module 1 revisions on the EC366 real-time operating systems. Now, as you all are aware that in the Module 1, we discuss about the operating systems, its functions, its objectives, and about the basics about the virtual concepts, virtualizations, kernels, and to an extent the evolutions of the operating systems, and followed by we discuss the process and with respect to the process, the different batches and the different types of the operating systems with respect to these batches. Now, coming to the point of the discussions, let me start with the discussion about the first slides about the computer systems. As you all know that the computer systems basic operation is to gather data. It has to perform certain computations. It has to store the informations. It has to use for the communicating with the various devices in the outside worlds using a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth or any other IEEE mode of communications. And finally, it has to store the data. It has to record that particular data in a different format. This is as a computer systems as a whole it do. So we have been talking about these computer systems from the school level to current levels also. So let's not much spend on these particular computer systems. And subsequent to the discussion, we'll use these two particular terms. So here I have put mouse, keyboard, speaker, printer, monitor, and this is a CPU. Inside CPU, there are many peripheral devices are there. There are memories are there. There are drivers are there. There are motherboard is there. And there is a VG boards are there. And some other components. So mouse, keyboard this is the input device, and this speaker and the printer is the output device, and monitor is also an output device. So this is all together we put across. Now we come to the next area of a discussion is the operating system, which is the basic component. When we talk about operating systems, it is the main components that used to supervise the every activities of the computer systems. Here, whatever active resources you are seeing for a computer, this is the CPU. For this CPU, these all are the resources. So these resources has to be maintained and it has to be monitored. That's why we need a particular systems that is called as an operating systems. Operating systems means it's basically a system software. And what exactly the system software does, basically the system software is basically a general purpose software. And it is used to operate the computer hardware. So this hardware is being operated by the computer. And it provides the platform for running all the application software. So that means in an operating system, when we talk about this processor, how it has to work, what are the process it has to pass on, what are the inputs it has to, when it has to take that input, when it has to deliver the output, who will deliver the output. So all these things the operating systems handle. So here is a main memory, here is a secondary memory. How this main memory, how this secondary memory has to interact, this has to be also looked by the operating systems. And there is a word like a kernel is there, user interface is there. This is a kernel which has been put here. You can see this one, the brown shade. And this is a user interface, that is the outside one. And this is nothing but internal components of a computer system. That means all these things put together. Now here, dear students, you have to observe that I have been talking operating systems, but I have not talked the operating systems, what it is. I have been talking what the operating system is doing. So operating system is basically an interface between the two components. That is the user interface. Here, this is a user interface, this part, and followed by the internal part. So whatever the external and internal communication, it has to take place. So that has to be handled by this particular system. So that is what I have been talking about. This one. So operating system is nothing but an interface between the outside world and inside world. Outside world is the user, and the inside world is nothing but the operating system's hardware components. Which is that operating system hardware component? CPU is the hardware component. So CPU, when I say CPU, main memory is also coming, secondary memory is also coming, driver is coming, everything is coming inside this one. So that is what I mean to say. So if you look across these particular terms of the operating systems, basically these operating systems has some functions. So what are the functions the operating system do? The operating systems try to look across the functions, whatever based on the input. Suppose you are doing giving some mathematical functions, then operating system will be seeing that processor will do some arithmetical logical unit activities. So for that, the hardware will be using, what is that hardware? All the digital circuits for computing that. So all the digital circuit activity is being carried across this particular place. So that is what I mean to say. Now, when we come across this particular area, this is what I mean to say, talk about. The operating system is nothing but the interface between the user as well as the hardware. So these two things, when it is coming in parallel, that means this hardware and the user interface, that not in a, when I say parallel means this is one side and this is one side. The intermediate components, that is what it makes the interaction. It has a different protocol. This is having a different protocol. So whatever the application it has to run, for example, you are running an application of a WhatsApp. So under that particular situations, this user will be running that applications program, and the applications application program will interact with the operating systems. Then there is if suppose there is some hardware requirement, then its driver and operating system driver will be communicating. If the protocol matches, then operating system will allow the hardware to use that particular application's demand to fulfill. So this is what the operating systems is doing. Now, the role of the operating system is to do the interface between these two components, and also see that it can hide the complexity of the hardware from the user. So the user cannot able to directly interact. Now, coming to the next point of these discussions, when we talk about operating systems, you can see the hardware is there, and you can see the user program is there, and user interface. So this particular section is nothing but a user level, and this particular area is this particular area is nothing but a kernel level. This is a kernel level, this is a user level. So user level and the kernel level has to interact. So that's why there are some functional activities in this way, in this case. Now, here you can see program control, input, output, file system, communication, error management, resource, applications, security. All these things are nothing but a function of the operating system. So when we talk about an operating system, like for example, you are booting your computer. So the booting is the initial process. So that is why when you done the booting, when you do the booting will start the operating system, computer operating systems initially. And not only that one, not only that functions, it will do the functions about all these things whichever I have written, say loading and execution of a program, memory management, securities. You are let me take about you are having a secondary memory, the secondary memory disk management. Then you will be having a process. So if you are running a particular process, so process management, device management, printing management, like that, many different activities the operating systems will do. So hardware is a CPU. So it's whatever the based on these are nothing but an individual process. So when, as per the demand of this process, how many people are going to interact, that is very essential for managing the the entire activities of the of the computer systems. So this is what exactly I mean. When you look across these operating system functions, I have put like a user interface, memory management, peripheral management, multitasking, security. Like this one, many things will be there. So you should remember these things, because this is a very important things. What is operating system functions? Like this one, what I have written. And once this slide is finished, I will straightway go to my notebook. I will also show. So this is, you have to keep this one, is that these are even these are the part of the kernel. Kernel will also see that this everything how it is how it has to monitor. So that's why remember these 5 components, and many more is the device control, like that is there in very clearly being specified in my notebook, and it is being stated here also. Now, we talk about the operating systems types. You may be knowing that there are different type of operating systems, and depending upon the users, whether it likes which type of operating systems they like. So, a very simple operating system is that now here the system in which I am displaying everything to you. It is nothing but based on the Windows 10. My laptop that is running with the Windows 7. So I'm talking about the operating systems. Then you are having a Ubuntu operating system. Actually, then you are having a Macintosh operating systems. That is the flavor of a Microsoft Windows. And you have a Ubuntu is coming, Linux is coming. Then if you talk about then Apple Mac OS, iOS operating system is there. Then when you talk about a mobile, you are having an Android operating system is there. When you talk about a Nokia, then Symbian operating system is there. Like that, many different operating systems is there. So which is nothing but the core or a central part. So what is operating system in a nutshell? It's a software. And remaining sections is the hardware. So you have to see that there is a two thing is that there is a communications between the hardware and the software using this particular computer systems. So here I have seen certain, I put certain logo about Windows, Apple, and this is Android, like that. Now, let's see, this is what I have talked about, the component of the operating systems. Error manage, you can remember like this: memory is there inside, device is there, so all device management, all the processor, all the process that has to be managed, that is process management. The security, you are running a say antivirus system, so firewall systems, all these things is a part of a securities. Then error management, suppose your system is giving some error, like for example, you have written a biodata, and after that biodata you are saving, and maybe that because of some error your particular file is not able to save, and you have to recover that file back. So under that particular situations, what you are going to do, the operating system will try to look for the error, how it has taken place, and how that particular error we can able to recover back. That is what we talked about, the error detection systems. And now coordination between the software and the users. That means the users demand whether it has to be fulfilled by the your processor or not. I give a very simple example is that, say for example, you have a simple operating systems which is not compatible to some other applications. Like for example, like you don't have a Java particular software installed in your system, and you want to run one application related to the Java. So what you have to do, unless and until you run that .exe file of the Java inside, and if you are not configuring, till that time operating system will not able to understand what exactly the user is going to users needs. So that's why there should be a proper proper distributions of the protocols of the users needs and the operating systems setups, which is done by the system administrators also. Now, coming to the activities and the services. What are the services and activities of the operating systems does is that normally operating systems, what it is doing is that if you type, say, for example, you are typing a one word file. So in that you are typing, you are deleting that content, all this writing, typing, deleting contents, everything. It's a part of that applications, but everything is being passed through the operating system. It is just like you are in your home, and when you come to the college, what happens once you are in a home? You are in a different functional, your activity, your role, your functions are different. But when you come to the any institutions or in the industries, automatically you are binded with that environment. So you have to carry out based on that. In the similar way, activities, whatever the application is in the external side, the user, once it allows the operating system to carry out, then it is the operating system that looks across all the activities and services. So you are writing a file, so file writing, deleting, everything is done. Then it can allow the user when to suspend the systems, when you want to, if you want to resume, say you have made your systems to put under the wake up mode, or in a sleep mode. All these things is possible with the operating system. Then your operating system can synchronize the file systems. And I have you may be knowing about fragmentation, defragmentation. All these things is possible with the operating systems. You can able to communicate with many devices, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. From these systems to another systems, you can able to send the files. All this thing is possible. And if any deadlock is happening, say for example, multiple processor you are running in the system at a one stretch, so what will happen? The system will not able to run fast. So automatically that deadlock is also being handled by the operating systems. Now we come to the next point of is that the system and application software. Dear students, this is another important components is that system and application software. Now, whatever exam we have been doing, all this thing is based on the given time frame. And let me thank every individual of you that you have sincerely devoted for your own benefit all these things. So sometimes we may not able to see that certain questions is not there in the question paper, but it may appear in the university paper. So that's why every angle you have to look across. The application and the system software. So I have talked about a system software means what? It is a general purpose software. And what about application software? Application software is a specific purpose software. So this is a general purpose software. This is a specific purpose software, and it is used. It is based on the user needs. So it will perform the user specific task. Whereas this one is what is doing. This is based on the system specific task. So when you talk about an application software, what are the application software? Like say for example, word processor, Excel. Say you are doing a computer game, spreadsheet, a internet browser. All these things is coming under this application software. Now, what are the system software? System software is nothing but an operating systems. All the type of the operating systems that you put across under this particular system software is coming. Now, one important thing under the system software is that we talk about compilations. We talked about debugging, and we talk about what I mean to say that assembler. All this compiler, assembler, debugger, driver, everything comes under the system software. And when we talk about application software, all things which I have put across. So you should study the difference between the system software and the application software and the comparisons. So one thing you have to understand, this is not a user perspective. This is installed. So that's why system administrators section is this one. And whereas this one is a user section. So user used to do, but this part is application is not a user, but it is also, it is a program which is done by the software engineers, and they will be or the software developers. They develop this one. This is also software developers, but this is handled by the system administrator. This is also a part of the system, but it is the user, based on the user need, it is being installed. And certain sections, this is also been installed by the system administrators. So all these things as a whole, it's a part of the computer system that you have to recall. So now we go to the our note side, and in the note side, what are the things you should look across that we will see. Now, if you see the notes side, we will see certain areas. Let me put it like this one. Certain people's. Okay. So in my notes, when you refer it, I have talked about the operating systems. That is a straightforward is there. And my dear students, I always advise repeatedly to my students, every figures that you draw in your note, in your exams, try to use a pencil, so that if anything by mistakenly has deviated out of the boundary, you can able to rub and add it, so that it will be a pleasing for the examiner to value, so that you will be getting some extra marks also. So that those are the things you have to remember. So multiple users, if you are putting a user 1, user 2, user 3, that means, say for example, in the college, what you are doing, you are using in the lab multiple system. So multiple system you are using, and you are using the college server. So this is the case of the user 1, user 2. You are running the application. That operating system is to handle it, that one. But you are having a single operating system of your PC. But suppose you are using a college web server, then the web server will be having its operating systems. So that will be interacting with the user. So this is a client. Users are called as a client, and this is nothing but a host. So that's the host, and the interface between the user and the hardware is nothing but a operating systems. So that is what you have to word interface. Word you should write it. So that now those are the things I have put across as a very simple way to understand. I have put the basic example of the operating systems, and you can add still more what I have been put across: Windows 98, all these Solaris, Macintosh, those things. Now, what are the operating systems basic highlights? Operating system is a software. It acts as an intermediary between the user. That is a middle part. It is act as a resource manager, because it manages and all the type of resources, and it knows how to send that resources as per the demand, as and when required. So those are nothing but the part of the operating systems. Now coming to the another, it provides the platform for the other programs. It provides the platform for the other programming. Suppose you are having a, say your operating system is using a window, but you are some other platform systems, you want to use it through this window. So there will be a under that particular situations, if you are running that particular application, then operating systems will try to see that how that new platform application can be made, so that it can be run on the operating systems platform, to see that the output can be visualized, can be displayed, or output can be made possible for the users. That is what we are seeing. I give an example. Say for example, you want to hear some VLC pair. So if the VLC is not at all installed, and then you are running, then under that particular situation, instead of VLC, what the systems will try to do, system will try to look for the some other form of a player. Say for example, a KM player. You are using a KM player, then it will try to convert to the KM player and try to displayed. So there are so many other activities the operating system tries to do. Now here, there I put operating system. It acts as an interface between the user and the hardware. User do not know the language of the hardware and vice versa. So that's why between the user and the hardware, there is a partitions, so that user no need to worry about what the hardware is doing, but it is going to deliver the output. Now, this is a very important question. It is coming objective of the operating systems like a 3 mark. Convenience, how you can able to handle it. Efficiency, how you can able to run a multiple systems using if you are running a multiple application, how the operating systems can handle. That means you are running at a time Word, then music, like or you are running a some Excel, like that. If you take it, still then operating systems can able to work. And convenience means it can able to run any form of a user compatible with the systems level compatibility. If it exists, it can able to run that one in a convenient manner. It create a new functions. That means you are running with the one video audio file, but system do not have. Then system will try to convert and do. So those are nothing but like that. Now, what are the functions? I have told you: process management, managing the processes; memory management, managing all the memory distributions, secondary memory, primary memory, when that particular page has to transfer, how the page has to transfer, all these things. Input output management, how the whenever you give the input, how it has to handle. All this a part of this one. Then security management, how the security of the systems can be maintained. I have talked about. If you are using an 8-bit or a 32-bit security system, that is encryptions. That is what I mean to say. Device management is that all the devices, how you are going to handle. So before we go to the next duration, because the time is running out, so that's why I will be talking about this batch operating systems at that instant. So I will come to this batch operating system. That is a very important. Before that, I will take you to the area about okay, anyhow, let me use that. Batch operating system is what is the batch operating system? A batch operating system is that of systems where you are allowing the operating systems to process in a one after another. What is made by one after another? It indicates that in the batch is the old methods. Say for example, if you go back to a long back where the computer was running, how the computer was running. If a user want to give any inputs, user will give the inputs through a punch card. So this punch card is being taken by the operator. Now, like that, every user will be giving through a punch card, because at that time scanner and such type of thing was not there. So when every user will give the input through a punch card. So the operator will collect it, and the operator will put it in the batch way. After putting in a batch way, it will give to the computer. So inside computer, what is there? The CPU is there, operating systems is there, and a memory is there. Thereby, this batch operating system will have an enability. That means the operating systems will decide which process has to pass, and thereby the process is executed. That is what I mentioned here. We just post the number of jobs and tasks to the operating system, and the system execute the job one by one serially. This answer is only for understanding, but when you want to write the answer, you have to write the answer in a way. I will in my note, it is being put across. Say for example, if you see my if you go across to my note, there you will be seeing that particular descriptions, or I have a descriptions which is being written here. Let me show it. Yeah, I will come to this point. Okay, before that, it is here, batch operating systems. I will be explained to you. Here I have mentioned these batch operating systems. Now, before that, you see here job. Job means number of process. A number of process, when you combine together, it becomes a job. So in the batch processing, such type of a, the operator will make such type of a different process batches. So that becomes a one jobs. And when you talk about a process, it's a program in executions. So when it is executed, that is known as process. Task means what? A set of instruction located in the memory. So when you write a set of instruction for a given process, that is known as a task. So that is what. So I put it like a teacher taking the class, so that he gives the instructions. Thread. Thread is also a collection of a process, but the process will be very small. So just like in the thread, all the fiber, when it is put together, it forms the thread. So like that, it's a collections of a process, but it does the small process activities, a smaller task. That is what put as a small task. Process is basically do a heavy weighted task. So in the case of process, the task is very heavy, whereas in the thread, the task is less, but it is just like a process. So task is a process. When we talk about a process, that is nothing but a program plus data. So that is known as a task under the case of that particular process. Process is a sequence of steps performed by the program to compute this task. So that is known as the process. Now coming to the what is exactly process? Process means it consists of these components. That is nothing but a new task comes. What is task? Task is a process. Whenever a new task comes, it is being given to the CPU. It is being put ready. It is being put ready, and once it is put ready in the form of a queue, it is given to the CPU for running. Once the CPU starts running and execute it, then it will put it under terminate. But every time when the CPU is running this task, it is not doing by itself. It is interacting with the input output interface, and that input output interface will perform based on the CPU because it is a part of a CPU. And once this when this command is going to input output, CPU will be free, and then at that time it will take a next process, and or the CPU will be going to sleep mode when it is given to input output. Once the input output complete the activity, it will send back to CPU, then CPU send it to terminate. When the if suppose input output is very busy, CPU will put that one into waiting state or in the block state. Once the waiting and block is completed, it will go to ready, and again it will go to CPU. Like that, this is the process. Suppose if there is this is another case. If the CPU is free, then it is coming. It is taking this path also. But there is one more is not shown. That is an interrupt. Whenever interrupt comes, it goes here. So this is what in the process the activities being stated as shown. So these are nothing but a state of the process: new, ready, running, terminate, then waiting, interrupt. These are nothing but a state. This is called as a handshaking. Handshaking means what? Handshaking is indicate request clear. Request is going from A to B. When a request is accepted, then they will say send it clear that I am ready to accept. So then the clear will be coming. Then data will be going to from A to B. Once the data is received, that is sending an acknowledge. So these clear and acknowledge is nothing but thanks for the from B to A, and a request and acknowledges is nothing. A request and data is nothing but a communication from A to B to send some information. So this is known as the handshaking methods. So based on this, let's see this particular case. The type of the operating systems I have already talked about it. Now let's see the different type of operating system. No, types of operating system, very important. It will come in the university paper. Then suppose they will not ask 10 times, but at least sometime if based on the questions you have to see. So that's why it is very easy to understand. Batch operating system, batch processing system, multi-programming system, system user, multitasking, like that, networking, multi-processing, real-time, embedded, distributed. So batch operating systems I have spoken here is that what from the initially, as I've shown you here, is that when the process is coming new to CPU and from the ready, it is going to running. So you remember this ready to new ready running terminate waiting and these four state only you remember. So let's come here. Now, if you try to see when the process is coming to running state in the CPU, what the CPU will be doing, the CPU will be taking one by one batches. So when the CPU is taking one by one batches, that CPU is giving that input output to do that activities. But at that time, CPU will go to sleep conditions. Once the input output do the work, then it will interrupt the CPU that I have completed, then this CPU will terminate. So this is how the batch operating systems goes. So this is the oldest operating systems. That is what I mean to say. And it is a time consuming because CPU is every time it is going into the sleep mode. And after compute, by that time CPU is not doing any other work. So in this case, efficiency is low as well as the utilizations of the CPU. Utilizations means more time CPU is not working. So that's why in this one it is poor. So this is known as the batch operating system. If you see my notes, this is another notes I made it for the students to handle in the class. So in my notes, the advantage disadvantage is given. So every operating system advantage and every type of operating system you have to understand. You have